Jim Nickelson is a Camden-based fine art photographer who has followed the classic artistic path of NASA engineer and corporate lawyer. His work is always centered on a passion for science and nature, but his newest project is directed toward climate change activism. And his fall 2019 trip to the Northern Rockies is in support of this cause. Please welcome Jim.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming out, and thank you to all my fellow presenters for all the amazing presentations. So, for as long as I've been a photographer, I've photographed nature and landscape, but I was always decidedly non-political. But I had an artist residency in Iceland in 2018, and when I was there and saw the impact of climate change on the glaciers, I changed my mind. I decided I want to be more activist with my photography. So I had to come up with a project, and to do so, I kind of went to an unlikely place, which was these photographs from Timothy L. Sullivan in the 1870s as part of the Great Western Surveys, where they were exploring the unexplored West and trying to create a record of what there was to discover and exploit. So I had to come up, so I used this for my project. And so what I've done, I guess the idea I have, the way I would explain it, is I'm going to do my own surveys, and I'm going to survey what we have right now and look at it from the point of view of far in the future, 100 years in the future. So imagine a museum exhibition 100 years from now looking back at my pictures as a record of what we had and what we lost. So I started off my trip in September. I drove out to Glacier National Park. Glacier has always been one of my favorite places, and it's unfortunately become a poster child for climate change because in 30 or 40 years, Glacier National Park, despite its name, is going to have no glaciers left. In the time of Timothy L. Sullivan, Glacier had about 150 glaciers. Now it has about 25, and in 30 or 40 years, it's going to have 0, including this glacier here, Jackson Glacier, which is from my trip in September. Now, glaciers are beautiful, iconic, very photogenic, and so and I think, they're worth protecting all on their own, but they also have a broader impact too. It's not just these glaciers themselves, they have an impact on the broader system. A glacier will feed an alpine stream, the alpine stream will feed a lake, and so on. It all has a big impact. This is Sperry Glacier, the glacier that's kind of visible behind the ridgeline, another one of the glaciers there that's at threat. But it's not just about glaciers either. One thing that's really changing in the West is the prevalence of fires, both in frequency and in terms of the intensity. This is from a fire in 2003 in Glacier where 13% of the park burned in one summer. And this is happening because the burn season is longer, snowpack melts earlier, temperatures are higher, everything's drier, and all this contributes. And of course, fires have always been part of the West. And when things burn, new things grow. But it has a lot of effects. For example, whole species are wiped out. And also, when you burn a forest, that puts more carbon in the atmosphere and makes the climate, has more of an impact on climate change. And obviously, this has been in the news a lot because of Australia and the fires in California last year. Another place I went on my trip was Theodore Roosevelt National Park, which is right here. And this is in North Dakota. And no glaciers there, and actually not that much to burn either, but there is still an impact. And there it's the megafauna, it's the elk, it's the bison that are there that are all threatened. After that, I went up north into the Canadian Rockies. This is in Banff National Park in Alberta. And the trees that are on the top are the mountain larch, and they're really amazing because they're deciduous conifers. The needles turn yellow and drop off. And not to be depressing about it, but those aren't going to last either. Their range is very narrow, and as the temperatures change, they're going to move off the mountains. The Canadian Rockies have quite a few glaciers, more so than the continental U.S. This is the Victoria Glacier in Banff also. And the scale of these things is pretty hard to imagine unless you're there, but like that wall at the bottom, that's probably about 50 foot thick. Of course, it's getting thinner as time goes on. This is from Yoho National Park in British Columbia. And this is this wonderfully green alpine lake. And these alpine lakes with these amazing colors, they get those colors because they're being fed by glaciers. And the sediment in the glacier is giving up the color. So when the glaciers go away, that color is going to go away too. Similarly, this is Takakaw Falls in Yoho National Park. And this is 1,200-foot waterfall, and this is a relatively small section of it frozen, but it's fed by a glacier as well. And when that glacier melts, which is looking like 50 or 60 years from now, then this waterfall is going to become essentially extinct as well. One of my main targets on this trip was going to the Columbia Ice Field, which is in Jasper National Park. and there's the Athabasca Glacier, and then this is the Andromeda Glacier, which you can see from the Athabasca Glacier. And you probably may have seen pictures of this on Instagram, but there's the Athabasca Glacier. You could actually go out and take these kind of Mad Max-style buses out there onto the glacier itself. It's really pretty cool. And there's another photo from the same place. And so this glacier has retreated over a mile since the days of Timothy O'Sullivan. And the Canadian Park Service estimates that that Athabasca Glacier that I took that tour bus on is going to be a lovely alpine meadow in 100 years. This is Angel Glacier. This is in Jasper National Park as well. When I was there was a grandmother there with her granddaughter. And the grandmother was talking to me and her granddaughter and saying how big this was when she came there when she was in her 20s. And she brought her granddaughter there to give her one chance to see this before it was too late. This is in Jasper National Park as well. This is called Medicine Lake. And the moose there is, the moose population in Jasper is declining. And one reason it's declining is the incidence of disease that are either tick-borne or worm-borne diseases. And just like here in Maine with ticks and Lyme disease, the warmer temperatures, warmer winters, is making those sort of insects have more lives. This is from Yellowstone National Park. My daughter, who's 13, so this will make more sense, she saw this picture and she's like, "Really, Dad? Again with the animal pictures?" You know, it's not really you, but you know, it's hard to avoid it when you're out there, though. So when this is the last park I went to on my trip. This is Badlands National Park in South Dakota. And when I was there, I got really lucky. There was this crazy snowstorm, and it really looked like that. It was really surreal. And you know, places like Badlands, they're still going to have winter and still going to have snow 100 years from now. But a lot of these storms, just like we're here, are going to come out as rain instead of snow. So all told, my trip was 9,000 miles of driving, 9 national parks, 3.5 weeks. And so what's next? I want to do more of these surveys. I want to do a survey of New England. I want to go to other places like Greenland. Antarctica would be ideal. I also want to do more publicity, things like this, exhibitions, books, and kind of bring this sort of thing to the attention of the public. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.